loves you.
Ooh, awkward. Did anyone tell Jehovah I'm married? So, hello YouTube. There's a guy named Adam who's making videos on YouTube, disfellowshipped and returning to the truth, and decided to make a video in regard to apostates. Now, he didn't mention me in particular. Most Jehovah's Witnesses don't really consider me an apostate because I don't really talk down about their religion. I try to discuss the parts of their religion, but nonetheless, as Lucius says,
stop fucking my battle buddies!
So I'm here to step up to the challenge, so to speak. I don't just consider these people my battle buddies, I pretty much consider them my friends, so if you're going to make a video attacking them, you just woke the sleeping dragon. And from what I understand, that's a really bad idea, because humans get crispy very quickly, and from what I understand, they're very tasty with ketchup. Adam, you meet people with the charge that they take things out of context and twist them to fit their agenda, right? Am I taking that out of context? Why don't we take a look at the video here to see exactly what you're saying?
Whenever you watch videos by Propaganda Techniques or Lucius Boogeyman or any of those people, what you have to realize is they take a small, tiny bit of information. They take a snippet of information. They take it out of context and they twist it and they wrap it around, and then they use their personalities and the saltiness of their flavor, and they give it this taste that makes it very enticing to say, oh wow, I didn't know that.
Alright, so for the most part, I don't really get into the whole context arguments because I think it's a stupid argument. When someone says context, that screams to me, I concede your point, but it doesn't fit with my preconceived notion as to what the answer should be. For example, if I said something like, the Watchtower tells us to love each and every man on earth, love your enemy as yourself, you would agree and say something to the effect of, that's absolutely what the Watchtower preaches, right? But if I were to quote another Watchtower saying something like, do not feel sadness for the dead ones after Armageddon, but instead rejoice in their destruction, you'll say I'm taking out of context without ever even hearing where I'm getting it from, what article, or whatever. However, let's ignore the fact that you cite no examples as to what we're taking out of context and twisting meaning. Let's say that we are indeed taking every single solitary thing we cite out of context. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we are indeed twisting every single solitary article, every single solitary scripture. We're purposely pointing to the parts of articles, certain scriptures, select translators, and a few historical references, all to build up some sort of case to prove that our viewpoint is correct. My question to you would be, how is that any different than what you're doing, Adam? For example, if we were discussing something like, I don't know, say the Trinity, what are the arguments you're going to use? You're going to probably use the scripture where Jesus prays to God to say, why would Jesus pray to himself? You're probably going to point to the scripture where Jesus says that the Father is greater than I, right? From there, if you've done some research, you're going to cite some articles, or more appropriately, the parts of the articles that the Watchtower cites. Maybe if you've really done some research, you'll cite some translators, without, of course, mentioning what your credentials for verifying what makes a good translation, whether you have college courses in Greek and Hebrew like I have, or if you're just looking at online translations, trying to find the definition that best fits your preconceived notion of what the verse should mean. And if you're an absolute scholar, you'll probably cite some historical references of Christians believing in one God, right? The problem here is that you're not going to cite the scripture in Philippians where Jesus states he emptied himself to take a slave's form, which explains away why he would say the Father was greater than him. It also limits his knowledge since he's in slave's form, and explains why he would pray to himself. You're also not citing the scripture in Romans where it says to be saved, Christian must admit that Jesus is their Lord. Then the scripture in Timothy, which says that Jehovah knows his people, and the word for Lord and Jehovah in those two scriptures are the exact same word. You're not going to cite the articles about the Apostle Paul, which shows the words he used for Christ are all interchangeable in Greek with the ones he used for God. You're not going to cite the translators that confirm this, and you're also not going to cite the historical references about the Trinity concept being used in the first century Christians. Same thing with blood transfusions. You're going to cite the scripture that says abstain from blood. You're going to cite some articles about blood as surgery, supposedly being safer than surgery with blood transfusions. You're going to give a couple examples of people getting some sort of disease from a blood transfusion. You might even have a quote from a doctor to cite. The problem is that you're not going to give the statistics of how many blood transfusions there are per year and what the actual percentage is of people getting transfusions that have complications due to them, which is basically negligible. You fail to mention how many doctors refuse to be on the list of bloodless surgeries. You fail to mention that the scripture about abstaining blood was only talking about in front of Jewish Christians. And the biggest thing you fail to mention is that the portions of blood that are accepted in some cases, but the line as to why is blurred. Because portions of blood are accepted because it's not whole blood, but then again, red blood cells aren't accepted and they're not whole blood, but hemoglobin is accepted and it's the entire contents of a mature red blood cell. You get me? So my question to you, Adam, is if you're charging us with taking things out of context and twisting things, so given my examples, how is this any different than what you're doing? In fact, if you look at the facts, we're actually responding to claims made by your religion about how their organization is the truth, for many of the same half-truths and quote-mined reasons I mentioned above. Now, essentially what you're doing here is you're presenting us a building made of cards. You're showing us the cards you're building with. You're saying that they have 4 sides just like bricks. They're nice flat walls just like bricks do. They're even red just like bricks, and therefore the house you made is solid just like a brick house. The apostates, you say, are twisting things and taking things out of context, are really just showing that those bricks you're presented, if turned to the side, are paper thin. And the solid building that you're selling us will fall down when faced with a stiff breeze. So Adam, can you please explain to me what is the difference between what you claim we're doing and what you're actually doing? Something you've got to realize here is that we've made videos citing our sources, talking about different viewpoints, discussing logical fallacies, what they are and how to recognize them, addressing critic comments to us, and most importantly, leaving the comments open for open discourse. When someone makes videos accusing other people of twisting things and taking things out of context without mentioning what they are, or they say they won't deal with any more opposing positions, it reeks of someone hiding something, showing those paper-thin bricks with an air of authority. So you tell me, though, Adam, how exactly are your presentations, specific presentations with the goal of making people believe your side is right through all the methods you use, half-truths, partially cited sources, and specifically selected scriptures, is any different than what you accuse your opposers, the apostates, of? You're going down!